The fluorescent lights of Vanderbilt University Medical Center's oncology wing hummed their familiar tune as Emily Patterson pushed through the double doors at 6:47 a.m. The August heat was already building outside, turning Nashville into a humid maze of country music bars and construction cranes. But inside the hospital, the air conditioning kept everything at a sterile 72 degrees. Emily had walked these hallways for 5 years now, her white sneakers squeaking against the polished linoleum, her badge swinging from the lanyard around her neck. But today felt different. Today, her grandmother was somewhere in this building, and that changed everything. Emily stopped at the nurse's station on the 4th floor, setting down her thermos of coffee and grabbing the patient chart she'd been assigned. 28 years old, unmarried, living in a cramped apartment in East Nashville, with a roommate who worked night shifts at a recording studio. This wasn't the life she'd imagined when she was younger, but it was honest work, good work. She helped people during their darkest hours, held hands when families couldn't be there, translated medical jargon into human language. Her patients called her an angel. She just called herself tired. "Morning, Emily," called out Jennifer Crawford, the charge nurse, a robust woman in her 50s with reading glasses perpetually perched on her head. "How are you holding up?" Emily forced a smile. "One day at a time, Jen. That's all any of us can do, right?" Jennifer's face softened with understanding. Everyone on the floor knew about Diane Patterson. The 78-year-old woman had been admitted 3 days ago when her home hospice care could no longer manage her pain. Stage 4, pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis had come 6 months earlier, dropping into their lives like a boulder into still water, sending ripples that would never quite settle. "She had a rough night," Jennifer said gently. "Dr. Harrison increased her morphine around 3 a.m. She's resting now, but you should know. The social worker wants to talk to you about arrangements." Arrangements. Such a clinical word for saying goodbye to the only mother Emily had ever really known. "I'll stop by her room before my shift starts," Emily said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. "Thanks for watching over her." As she walked down the corridor toward room 428, Emily's mind drifted back through the years. She was 6 years old when the Tennessee State Police knocked on Diane's door in Murfreesboro, bringing news that would shatter their small family into pieces. Emily's parents, Diane's son Robert and his wife Michelle, had been driving home from a wedding in Memphis when a drunk driver crossed the center line on I-40. They died on impact. Emily, who'd been staying with her grandmother that weekend, suddenly became an orphan with nowhere to go except into Diane's arms. And Diane, a widow herself after losing her husband to a heart attack 3 years prior, opened those arms without hesitation. She sold her comfortable 2-bedroom house and bought a larger one with a yard. She learned to braid hair and cook meals that a picky 6-year-old would eat. She attended every school play, every parent-teacher conference, every dance recital. She worked double shifts as a seamstress at a bridal shop to pay for Emily's college applications. She became mother, father, and best friend, all rolled into one fierce, loving package. Room 428's door was partially open. Emily knocked softly and entered. The woman lying in the hospital bed looked so small, so diminished from the vibrant grandmother Emily remembered. Diane's silver hair, which she'd always worn in a neat bun, lay thin and wispy against the pillow. Her face, once round and quick to smile, had become gaunt, the bones of her skull pressing against papery skin. But when she heard Emily's footsteps, her eyes opened. Those same bright blue eyes that had dried 1,000 childhood tears, and a weak smile appeared. "There's my girl," Diane whispered, her voice rough from a night of pain. Emily moved to the bedside, taking her grandmother's hand. The skin felt cool and fragile, like aged parchment. "Hey, Grandma. How are you feeling?" Like I've been hit by a truck, Diane said, managing a dry chuckle. But at least the morphine makes the truck fuzzy around the edges. Emily pulled up a chair, settling in close. The morning light filtered through the Venetian blinds, casting stripes across the white bed sheets. Somewhere down the hall, a television played the morning news. A cart rattled past, delivering breakfast trays to patients who could still eat solid food. "I brought you something," Emily said, pulling out her phone. "Remember how you always said you wanted to hear Reba sing Fancy live? I found a recording from her Las Vegas residency last year. The sound quality is amazing." Diane's eyes lit up with a spark of their old joy. Reba. Lord, that woman can sing. Always could reach right into your chest and pull at your heartstrings. This wasn't an exaggeration. Reba McEntire had been the soundtrack of Diane's life for as long as Emily could remember. Growing up, their house was filled with the sounds of country music, Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, Dolly Parton. But Reba held a special place. Her albums lined the shelf in the living room. Her concerts had been the few indulgences Diane allowed herself, driving hours to Bridgestone Arena or the Ryman Auditorium whenever the Queen of Country came to Tennessee. Emily remembered being 12 years old, sitting in the nosebleed section of an amphitheater, watching Reba perform under a canopy of summer stars. Diane had worn her best denim jacket with rhinestones, singing along to every word, tears streaming down her face during "The Greatest Man I Never Knew." After the show, as they walked back to the parking lot among thousands of other fans, Diane had said something Emily never forgot. "That's what real music does, sweetheart. It makes you feel less alone in the world." Now, as Emily played the recording on her phone, watching her grandmother's face transform with the opening chords, she wondered if music could make death feel less lonely too. They sat together for 40 minutes, Emily's shift starting time coming and going unnoticed. Jennifer Crawford, bless her heart, covered without complaint. The playlist moved through Reba's greatest hits. Is There Life Out There? Does He Love You? Consider Me Gone. Each song a memory, a moment suspended in time. When For My Broken Heart began to play, Diane closed her eyes, a single tear rolling down her cheek. "You know," she said softly, "when your grandfather died, and then your parents, I thought I'd never survive it. The grief felt like drowning. But then I'd put on a Reba album. And somehow, hearing her sing about heartbreak and survival, it reminded me I wasn't the first person to feel this way. And I wouldn't be the last." Emily squeezed her grandmother's hand. "You're the strongest person I know, Grandma." "Not strong, baby. Just stubborn." Diane opened her eyes, fixing Emily with a look that still held authority despite the frailty of her body. "Promise me something. Anything. Don't let this break you. When I'm gone, and we both know it soon, don't let the sadness win. Find your music. Find whatever makes you feel less alone. And keep living. Really living. Not just surviving." Emily's vision blurred with tears, but she nodded. "I promise." The rest of the day passed in a haze. Emily went through her rounds on autopilot, checking vitals, administering medications, offering comfort to patients and families who had no idea her own heart was breaking. She smiled when expected, spoke in soothing tones, and made notes in charts with steady hands. But inside, she was screaming. Her lunch break came at 1:30 p.m. Instead of going to the cafeteria, Emily found herself in the hospital chapel, a small non-denominational room on the second floor that always smelled faintly of furniture polish and old hymnals. She sat in the back pew, staring at the simple cross on the wall, and tried to pray. But the words wouldn't come. What do you say to a God who let your parents die when you were 6? Who was now taking away the one person who'd pieced your broken world back together? Emily pulled out her phone, scrolling mindlessly through social media, desperate for distraction. Her feed was the usual mix of friends' vacation photos, political arguments, and cat videos. But then she saw a post from one of her former nursing school classmates, Bethany Wright, who now worked at a children's hospital in Memphis. The post showed Bethany standing next to country singer Luke Combs, who'd visited the pediatric ward to meet with kids battling cancer. The caption read, "Sometimes miracles come in unexpected packages." This superstar took 3 hours out of his day to sing, laugh, and bring hope to our littlest warriors. Faith in humanity. Restored. Emily stared at the photo for a long time. An idea began to form, crazy and desperate, and probably impossible. But what did she have to lose? She opened Instagram and found Reba McEntire's verified account. 3 million followers, posts from concerts, behind-the-scenes moments, promotional content for her latest album. The comment sections were flooded with thousands of messages from fans around the world. What were the chances that one small voice from Nashville would ever be heard? But Diane's words echoed in her mind. Don't let the sadness win. Emily navigated to the direct message feature, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. What do you say to a legend? How do you ask for a miracle without sounding delusional or entitled? Finally, she began to type. Dear Reba, my name is Emily Patterson, and I'm a nurse at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville. I know you probably receive thousands of messages like this, and I completely understand if you never see this. But I have to try. My grandmother, Diane Patterson, is dying from pancreatic cancer. She has days, maybe a week at most. Diane raised me after my parents were killed in a car accident when I was 6 years old. She sacrificed everything to give me a good life. Working multiple jobs, never complaining, always putting me first. And through all of it, the grief, the hard times, the lonely nights, your music was her constant companion. I'm not asking for much. If there's any possible way you could record a short video message for her, just a few words, it would mean the world. She talks about you like you're an old friend. Your songs got her through the darkest times of her life. I want to give her one more happy memory before she goes. Thank you for even taking the time to read this if you do. Your music has touched more lives than you'll ever know. Respectfully, Emily Patterson. She reread the message 3 times, each time finding new reasons to delete it. It sounded desperate, manipulative, like she was using her grandmother's illness to get attention from a celebrity. But then she thought about Diane's face when Reba's music played, the way those old songs could still bring light to her eyes, even as her body failed. Emily hit send before she could overthink it further. The message disappeared into the digital void, joining probably hundreds of others sent that day. Emily closed the app, feeling foolish. What had she expected? That a superstar would drop everything for a stranger's dying grandmother? Real life didn't work like that. She returned to work, finished her shift, and went home to her apartment around 7 p.m. Her roommate, Cassidy Holland, a sound engineer at a studio on Music Row, was sitting on the couch eating leftover Chinese food and watching a reality show about house flipping. "Hey," Cassidy said, looking up with concern. "How was today?" "Same as yesterday. Same as tomorrow will probably be." Emily dropped her bag by the door and headed to the kitchen, searching the refrigerator for something that resembled dinner. She settled on a yogurt that was 2 days past its expiration date. "You want to talk about it?" Cassidy asked. Emily leaned against the counter, peeling back the yogurt lid. "Not really. Talking doesn't change anything. She's still dying. I'm still losing her. Words don't fix that." Cassidy nodded, understanding. They'd been roommates for 3 years, long enough to know when to push and when to give space. I'm here if you change your mind. And hey, I know you probably don't feel like it, but Angela Norris invited us to her birthday thing at Acme Feed and Seed on Thursday night. Could be good to get out, you know? Clear your head for a few hours. Emily managed a weak smile. Maybe. Let me see how the week goes. She retreated to her bedroom, a small space with barely enough room for a double bed and a dresser. The walls were covered with photos, graduation pictures, shots of her and Diane at various points in her childhood, a few from nursing school. Her life, documented in squares of glossy paper. Emily changed into sweatpants and an old University of Tennessee t-shirt, then climbed into bed with her laptop. She pulled up Diane's medical records from the hospital system, technically a HIPAA violation to access family members' charts, but she needed to see the truth in clinical terms. The doctor's notes from the past 3 days painted a grim picture: rapidly declining liver function, increasing confusion from hepatic encephalopathy, metastases visible throughout her abdomen on the latest CT scan. The oncologist's most recent note ended with, "Patient is transitioning to comfort care. Family has been informed that death is imminent, likely within 3 to 7 days. 3 to 7 days. Less than a week left of her grandmother's voice, her stories, her presence in the world." Emily closed the laptop and picked up her phone, scrolling through old text messages between her and Diane. Most were mundane. Reminders about doctor's appointments, grocery lists, quick check-ins during busy days. But scattered throughout were the messages that mattered. "So proud of you, baby girl. You're going to do great things. Love you more than all the stars in the sky." On impulse, Emily opened Instagram again, navigating to Reba's profile. The most recent post was from 4 hours ago, a photo of the singer at a radio interview in Los Angeles, promoting her upcoming fall tour. The comments were already in the thousands. Emily clicked on her own message thread, half expecting to see it marked as "Read" with no response. The message was still unread. Of course it was. Emily set her phone on the nightstand and turned off the light. In the darkness, Nashville hummed outside her window. Distant traffic, the low thrum of bass from a bar a few blocks away, the occasional shout from people walking home from dinner or a show. Music City never really slept. It just changed rhythms. As she drifted toward sleep, Emily imagined what she'd say if she could actually meet Reba McEntire. "Thank you for giving my grandmother something to hold on to when everything else was falling apart. Thank you for singing about pain and survival in a way that made both feel survivable. Thank you for existing in a world that takes so much from us." But those conversations didn't happen in real life. They happened in dreams and fantasies. Nowhere else. Emily fell asleep thinking about her grandmother's smile, and Reba's voice, and the impossible distance between hope and reality. Emily's phone buzzed at 6:15 a.m., dragging her out of a restless sleep filled with fragmented dreams. She fumbled for it on the nightstand, squinting at the bright screen in the pre-dawn darkness. Probably the hospital calling to tell her Diane had taken a turn for the worse. That was how these things worked. Death didn't wait for convenient hours or prepared goodbyes. But the notification wasn't from Vanderbilt's switchboard. It was from Instagram. Reba McEntire. "Hi, Emily. I just read your message, and my heart is breaking for you and your grandmother. I'm actually in Nashville today for a recording session. If it's possible, I'd love to visit Diane at the hospital. Would this afternoon work? Please DM me back with details. You and your family are in my prayers. Reba." Emily stared at the screen, convinced she was still dreaming. She blinked hard, rubbed her eyes, looked again. The message was still there, time-stamped at 5:47 a.m., sent less than 30 minutes ago. "Oh my God," she whispered to her empty room. "Oh my God." Her hands were shaking as she typed a response. Yes, yes, absolutely. I can't believe this is real. Thank you so much. She's in room 428 at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. This afternoon would be perfect. I finish my shift at 3 p.m. Thank you. Thank you so much. She hit send, then immediately read the message back and cringed at how many times she'd said, "Thank you." But what else could she say? This didn't happen. Celebrities didn't respond to desperate pleas from random strangers on the internet. They certainly didn't offer to make personal hospital visits. Within 2 minutes, another message appeared. Perfect. I'll be there around 2 p.m. I'll let you know when I'm close. And Emily, your grandmother sounds like an amazing woman. I'm honored to meet her. Emily sat up in bed, her heart pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She needed to tell someone. She needed to verify this was actually happening, and not some elaborate dream or hallucination brought on by stress and exhaustion. She called the one person who'd understand. Her grandmother's best friend, Patricia Holbrook, a 75-year-old retired librarian who'd been Diane's companion through countless Reba concerts, album releases, and fan club meetings over the years. The phone rang 4 times before Patricia's sleepy voice answered. "Emily? Sweetheart, it's barely 6 in the morning. Is everything okay? Is it Diane? Patricia, I need you to tell me I'm not crazy." Emily's words tumbled out in a rush. "I sent a message to Reba McEntire yesterday asking if she could maybe send a video for Grandma, and she just wrote back saying she's coming to the hospital today, this afternoon, to meet Grandma. Is this real? This can't be real." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Patricia spoke, her voice now fully awake and trembling with emotion. "Lord have mercy. Emily, are you absolutely certain this isn't some scam or impersonator? It's her verified account. 3 million followers. Recent posts match what's on the news about her being in Nashville for recording. Patricia, I think this is actually happening." Sweet Jesus. Patricia's voice cracked. Diane's been waiting her whole life for something like this. "Emily, this is a miracle." "Should I tell her?" Emily asked, suddenly uncertain. "What if something goes wrong? What if Reba has to cancel? I don't want to get her hopes up and then—" "You tell her," Patricia said firmly. "Right now. Go to that hospital and you tell Diane that her favorite singer in the entire world is coming to see her today. Even if something goes wrong, even if it doesn't happen, she deserves to have this hope. She deserves to spend her last days knowing that someone heard your message and cared enough to respond." Emily nodded, forgetting that Patricia couldn't see her. "You're right. Will you come? Can you be there this afternoon? Wild horses couldn't keep me away. I'll call Helen Carter and Judy Morrison too. The whole fan club will want to know." After hanging up, Emily moved through her morning routine in a daze. Shower, coffee, scrubs, drive to the hospital through Nashville's awakening streets, but everything felt surreal, like she was moving through a movie rather than actual life. Her brain couldn't quite process what was happening. She arrived at Vanderbilt at 7 a.m. sharp, clocking in and heading immediately to room 428. Diane was awake, staring out the window at the city skyline painted in shades of pink and gold by the rising sun. The morphine pump hummed softly beside her bed, delivering steady relief from the pain that would otherwise be unbearable. "Morning, Grandma," Emily said, trying to keep her voice steady and normal. Diane turned her head, smiling weakly. "Morning, baby. You're here early. I have something to tell you." Emily pulled a chair close to the bed, taking her grandmother's hand. "I need you to stay calm, okay? Your heart can't handle too much excitement." Diane's eyebrows raised. "Now you've got my attention. What's going on?" Emily took a deep breath. Yesterday, during my lunch break, I sent a message to Reba McEntire on Instagram. I told her about you, about how much her music has meant to you over the years. I asked if maybe she could record a short video, just to say hello. Diane's expression softened with affection and a touch of pity. "Oh, Emily, sweetheart, that was sweet of you, but you know how many messages those big stars must get. Don't feel bad if she doesn't." "Grandma," Emily interrupted, squeezing her hand. "She wrote back this morning, and she's not sending a video." She paused, letting the words settle. "She's coming here, to this room, today at 2 o'clock. The color drained from Diane's already pale face. For a terrifying moment, Emily worried she'd made a mistake, that the shock would be too much. But then Diane's eyes filled with tears and a smile spread across her face. A real smile, the kind Emily hadn't seen in months. "What?" Diane whispered. "Emily, are you serious? Reba McEntire is coming here? To see me? I swear on everything. I have the messages on my phone. She's in Nashville for a recording session, and she said she wants to meet you." Diane pressed her free hand to her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I must look terrible. Lord, I'm dying in a hospital bed. My hair is falling out. I probably smell like medicine and old lady." Emily laughed, the sound watery with her own tears. "You look beautiful. But if you want, we can get you cleaned up. I'll ask one of the aides to help you wash your hair. We can put on your nice nightgown, the blue one I brought from home." "Yes," Diane said emphatically, suddenly animated in a way she hadn't been in weeks. "Yes, I want to look presentable. Oh my God, Emily, this is really happening?" "It's really happening, Grandma." The next several hours passed in a flurry of activity. Emily recruited two of her favorite nursing assistants, Maria Gonzalez and Tammy Russell, to help transform Diane from a dying cancer patient into someone ready to meet her idol. They gently washed her hair in the bedside basin, combing it out and styling it as best they could. They helped her into the soft blue nightgown, applied a little makeup to give her cheeks some color, and propped her up with extra pillows. Word spread through the oncology floor like wildfire. Nurses and doctors found reasons to walk past room 428, peeking in with curious smiles. Jennifer Crawford, the charge nurse, stopped by with a vase of fresh flowers from the hospital gift shop. "For the big day," Jennifer said, arranging the lilies and roses on the windowsill. "I'm going to make sure you two have complete privacy. No interruptions unless it's a medical emergency." Patricia Holbrook arrived at noon, clutching a worn photo album Emily recognized from Diane's living room. It was filled with pictures from every Reba concert Diane had ever attended. Ticket stubs carefully preserved in plastic sleeves, magazine cutouts, and handwritten notes about each show. "I thought maybe she'd like to see this," Patricia said, settling into a chair beside the bed. "Proof that you've been her biggest fan for 40 years. Diane flipped through the pages with trembling fingers, pointing out favorite memories. This one was at the Grand Ole Opry in 1986. She sang "Whoever's in New England," and I cried so hard I couldn't see straight. And this one, 1993, outdoor amphitheater in Memphis. 100-degree heat, but nobody cared. We were there for Reba. Two other women arrived around 12:30. Helen Carter, a retired school teacher, and Judy Morrison, who ran a small accounting firm in Brentwood. They were all part of an informal Reba McEntire fan club that had formed decades ago, meeting monthly at various Nashville restaurants to discuss new albums, share bootleg concert recordings, and celebrate their shared love of country music. "We had to be here," Helen said, giving Diane's hand a gentle squeeze. "This is the moment we've all dreamed about." Emily's phone buzzed at 1:45 p.m. A message from Reba. "Just left the studio. I'll be there in about 15 minutes." Is there anything special I should know about Diane? Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard. She's very weak but alert. Her hearing is good. She might cry a lot. She's very emotional. And she absolutely loves your early albums, especially Whoever's in New England and For My Broken Heart. Thank you again for doing this. The response came quickly. Those are two of my favorites too. See you soon! Emily showed the message to the room. The women clutched each other's hands, barely breathing. Diane closed her eyes, lips moving in what might have been a prayer. Whatever happens, Diane whispered, I want you all to know this has been the best day of my life. Even if she doesn't show up, even if it falls through somehow, knowing that someone out there cared enough to respond, that's enough. She's going to show up, Grandma, Emily said, with more confidence than she felt. At 2:03 p.m., Emily's phone buzzed again. I'm in the lobby, coming up now. The room fell silent. Patricia gripped Judy's hand. Helen pulled out a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. Emily moved to the door, opening it slightly and peering down the hallway. She saw the entourage first. Two people who looked like security or management, dressed in casual business attire, speaking quietly with Jennifer Crawford at the nurse's station. And then, emerging from the elevator, unmistakable even without her stage makeup and costume, was Reba McEntire. She wore simple jeans, a white blouse, and a denim jacket. Her red hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. She carried a guitar case in one hand and a small bouquet of wildflowers in the other. No cameras, no fanfare, just a woman coming to visit someone in a hospital. Emily's heart hammered as she stepped into the hallway. Ms. McEntire? Reba turned, her famous face breaking into a warm smile. You must be Emily. Come here, honey. Before Emily could process what was happening, she was being pulled into a hug. A real hug. The kind that felt like coming home. Reba smelled like honeysuckle and expensive shampoo. And when she pulled back, her green eyes were kind and genuine. Thank you for reaching out, Reba said. Stories like your grandmother's. They remind me why I do what I do. Music isn't just entertainment. It's medicine for the soul. She's going to lose her mind, Emily said, laughing through tears. Fair warning. There might be a lot of crying. I'd be disappointed if there wasn't, Reba said with a grin. Is it okay if my manager, Carolyn Snyder, comes in too? She'll stay in the background, I promise. Just needs to be there for liability reasons. Of course. And there are 3 of Grandma's friends in there too. They're all huge fans. If it's too crowded, the more the merrier, Reba assured her. Lead the way. Emily pushed open the door to room 428, stepping inside first. Grandma, there's someone here to see you. And then Reba McEntire walked through the door, and time seemed to stop. Diane's mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide, pupils dilating with shock. For a moment, Emily feared her grandmother had actually died from the surprise. But then, Diane gasped, both hands flying to her chest. Oh, my Lord, Diane breathed. Oh, my sweet Lord. Reba set down her guitar case and moved to the bedside, holding out the wildflowers. Hi, Diane. I'm Reba. I heard you might be a fan. Diane took the flowers with shaking hands, staring at them as if they were made of gold. This isn't real. I'm dreaming. The morphine is making me hallucinate. I promise you're awake, Reba said gently, pulling up a chair. Your granddaughter wrote me the most beautiful message yesterday. I couldn't not come. Tears streamed down Diane's face. I've loved you since 1977, since your first single. I was 30 years old, working at a department store in Chattanooga, and I heard I don't want to be a one-night stand on the radio. Something about your voice. It just reached inside me and never let go. Reba's own eyes glistened. That's 48 years of friendship we've had then, even if we're just now meeting face to face. Patricia, Helen, and Judy stood against the wall, clutching each other and crying openly. Emily recorded everything on her phone, knowing that even in memory, this moment would seem too perfect to be real. Emily tells me you two have been through a lot together, Reba continued, glancing at Emily. Sounds like you're one special lady, Diane Patterson. She's everything, Emily said, moving to stand beside the bed. When my parents died, she didn't hesitate. She rearranged her entire life to raise me. Went without, so I could have. And the whole time, your music was playing in our house. Fancy, when she needed to feel strong. For my broken heart, when she was grieving. The greatest man I never knew, when she missed my dad. Reba reached out, taking Diane's hand. Then I guess my music was our way of knowing each other, even though we'd never met. You held on to my songs, and in a way, I was holding on to you too. Would you... Diane's voice trembled. Would you maybe sing something? Just a little bit? I know you're probably tired from the studio, and I don't want to impose, but... Honey, that's exactly why I brought my guitar, Reba said, standing to retrieve the case. What would you like to hear? Diane looked at Emily, then back at Reba. For my broken heart, if that's okay. That song got me through the worst days of my life. Mine too, Reba said softly, settling back into the chair and opening the guitar case. I recorded that album right after my divorce. Felt like my whole world was ending. But sometimes the darkest times create the truest art. She pulled out an acoustic guitar, worn and loved, and positioned it across her lap. The room held its collective breath. Even the sounds of the hospital seemed to fade away. No beeping monitors, no footsteps in the hallway, no overhead pages. Just 5 women, a dying grandmother, and Reba McEntire about to sing in a hospital room. Reba strummed a few chords, adjusting the tuning, then looked up at Diane. This one's for you, sweetheart, for all the broken hearts that found their way to healing. And then she began to sing. The opening chords filled the small hospital room, and Emily felt the air change. It wasn't just sound. It was something more fundamental, like the molecules themselves were rearranging to accommodate the presence of Reba's voice. These old love letters, I just can't keep. Reba's voice was different here than on any album or concert recording Emily had ever heard. There was no microphone to enhance it, no sound engineer to add reverb or balance levels. Just raw, pure vocal power shaped by 48 years of practice and emotion. It resonated in Emily's chest, made her throat tight, brought instant tears to her eyes. But she wasn't crying for herself. She was crying because of what she saw on her grandmother's face. Diane had closed her eyes, but tears leaked from beneath her eyelids. Her lips moved silently, following along with words she'd sung 1,000 times in her car, her kitchen, alone in the dark when grief felt too heavy to carry. Her hands clutched the blanket, knuckles white as if she were holding on to this moment with every ounce of strength left in her failing body. 'Cause they remind me, you just don't love me anymore. Patricia, Helen, and Judy stood pressed together against the wall, arms around each other, swaying slightly. Helen had her face buried in Judy's shoulder. Patricia had both hands over her mouth, stifling sobs. Even Carolyn Snyder, Reba's manager, who surely had seen countless performances over the years, stood with tears streaming down her cheeks. I burn everything that won't let you go. Emily had heard this song hundreds of times. It had played at Diane's house so often it had become like wallpaper, just part of the background of life. But hearing it now, watching the words land on her grandmother like a benediction, she understood something she'd never fully grasped before. Music wasn't just art. It was companionship. It was validation. It was someone else's pain transformed into beauty, offered up as proof that suffering wasn't meaningless. For my broken heart. When Reba hit that last note, holding it long and clear, something shifted in the room. The note seemed to suspend time, creating a bubble where death couldn't reach, where cancer didn't matter, where two women, one famous and one unknown, were simply sharing a moment of profound human connection. The final chord faded. For several seconds, no one moved or spoke. Then Diane opened her eyes, looked directly at Reba, and whispered, "Thank you. Thank you for giving my life a soundtrack." Reba set down the guitar and reached for Diane's hand again. "Thank you for listening, for letting my music matter to you. That's all any artist can hope for, to be heard by someone who truly listens." "How do you do it?" Diane asked. "How do you sing about pain like that without drowning in it?" Reba considered the question carefully. I think you have to make friends with the pain. Not ignore it or pretend it doesn't exist, but invite it in for coffee. Sit with it. Let it tell you its stories. And then you take those stories and turn them into something that might help someone else feel less alone." She glanced around the room. "Like you, like your friends, you've all experienced loss, heartbreak, but you kept going. My songs didn't make the pain disappear. They just reminded you that other people have walked that same road and survived." "I wouldn't have survived without them," Diane said simply. "Without you. When Robert and Michelle died, Emily's parents, I wanted to die too. The grief was so enormous, I couldn't see around it. But I had a 6-year-old granddaughter who needed me. So I'd put on your albums, and I'd cry, and I'd sing. And somehow, I'd find the strength to make dinner and help with homework and show up the next day." Emily had never heard her grandmother articulate this so clearly. She'd known, in an abstract way, that Diane had struggled after losing her son. But hearing it stated so plainly, "I wanted to die too," made Emily's heart crack open. "I'm glad you stayed," Reba said, her voice thick with emotion. "Look at what you built. Look at this beautiful woman you raised." She nodded toward Emily. "She's a nurse. She spends her days caring for people in their darkest hours. That kind of compassion doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from being loved so well that you can't help but pass it on." Diane looked at Emily, her face radiant, despite the ravages of illness. "She's the best thing I ever did. My greatest accomplishment." "Grandma!" Emily managed to choke out, moving closer to the bed. Patricia stepped forward hesitantly. "Ms. McEntire, I'm Patricia Holbrook, Diane's best friend. Would it be okay if we took a photo? For later?" Reba stood immediately. "Absolutely. Let's get everyone in here." The next few minutes were a flurry of positioning, Reba sitting on the edge of Diane's bed, Patricia on one side, Helen and Judy flanking them, Emily kneeling in front. Carolyn took multiple shots on various phones, making sure everyone had copies. In each photo, Diane beamed with a joy that transcended her physical condition. She looked alive in a way she hadn't in months. "Can I see the photo album?" Reba asked, noticing it on the bedside table. Patricia handed it over eagerly. "Diane's been documenting every concert, every album release, every magazine article about you since 1977. It's basically a shrine." Reba flipped through the pages slowly, laughing at some of the photos. "Look at that hair! The 80s were not kind to anyone," and pausing thoughtfully at others. She stopped at a picture from 1994, showing a younger Diane and Patricia standing outside the Ryman Auditorium, holding tickets to a Christmas special. "I remember this show," Reba said softly. "It was snowing that night. First snow of the season. The Ryman's heating system was barely working, and everyone in the audience kept their coats on. But Lord, the acoustics in that building. You can't recreate that sound anywhere else." I remember the snow, Diane said. We drove in from Murfreesboro. The roads were terrible, and Patricia wanted to turn back. But I said absolutely not. I wasn't missing you at the Ryman for anything. Stubborn as a mule, Patricia confirmed with affection. Reba continued through the album, making comments and sharing memories. When she reached a ticket stub from a 2010 concert at Bridgestone Arena, she paused. This was the tour right after I'd lost my band in that plane crash. Hardest tour of my life. Every show, I'd look out at the audience and think about the musicians who should have been on that stage with me. But crowds like yours, Diane, people who showed up even when I was barely holding it together, you all got me through it. The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the 1991 tragedy that had killed 8 members of Reba's band when their plane crashed in California. It had been one of country music's darkest moments. Your music helped me process my own losses, Diane said. And I hope, in some small way, my showing up helped you with yours. That's what community does, isn't it? We hold each other up when holding ourselves up isn't enough. That's exactly what it does, Reba agreed. A knock on the door interrupted the moment. Jennifer Crawford poked her head in apologetically. Emily, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Dr. Harrison needs to speak with you. It's about Diane's care plan. Emily stood reluctantly. I'll just be a minute. Take your time, Reba said. I'm not going anywhere. Emily stepped into the hallway where Dr. Jeffrey Harrison, the palliative care specialist overseeing Diane's case, waited with a tablet displaying recent lab results. I wanted to update you, Dr. Harrison said quietly. Your grandmother's kidney function has declined significantly since this morning. Her blood pressure is also dropping. These are signs that her body is beginning the final stages of shutting down. I'd estimate we're looking at hours to days, rather than the days to weeks we discussed earlier. Emily felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. Hours? I'm sorry, Emily. I know you were hoping for more time. Doctor, Harrison's face was kind but honest. The good news, if we can call it that, is she's not in pain. The morphine is keeping her comfortable. And from what Jennifer tells me, she's having the afternoon of her life in there. Emily nodded, blinking back tears. She is. Thank you for everything you've done for her. When she returned to the room, Reba took one look at her face and understood. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition of mortality's imminence. Acknowledgement that this perfect afternoon was also a goodbye. But Reba didn't mention it. Instead, she picked up her guitar again and said, Diane, what other songs would you like to hear? I've got nowhere else to be today. Diane's face lit up. Really? You'll stay? As long as you want me here, Reba confirmed. Fancy, Patricia blurted out. You have to sing Fancy. It's Diane's fight song. Reba grinned. Now that's a character I love playing. Fancy Higginbottom, rising from nothing to become everything. All right, ladies, you ready for this? She launched into the opening chords, and immediately the mood shifted from tender to triumphant. This was a different kind of song, not about heartbreak, but about resilience, about women who refused to let circumstances define them. Diane sang along, her voice weak but determined. I might have been born just plain white trash, but Fancy was my name. Patricia, Helen, and Judy joined in. Emily, too. Even Carolyn Snyder found herself singing, all of them belting out the chorus like they were in Reba's living room rather than a hospital room where death was waiting just outside the door. When the song ended, everyone was breathless and laughing. Diane looked more animated than Emily had seen her in weeks. Color in her cheeks, light in her eyes. That's the thing about this song, Reba said. It reminds us that we're more than our circumstances. Fancy was poor, desperate, pushed into an impossible situation. But she used what she had. She survived. She thrived. And isn't that what we all do? We play the hand we're dealt, and we do our best to turn it into something worthwhile. You've turned your life into something extraordinary, Diane said. Millions of people around the world love you. And I love them right back, Reba said. Every single one. Especially the ones like you, who've been there from the beginning, through all the hairstyles and costume changes and different musical directions. You're not just fans, you're family. They spent the next hour and a half talking, singing, and sharing stories. Reba sang, "The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia," "Is There Life Out There?" and "Consider Me Gone." Between songs, she asked about Diane's life, her work as a seamstress, her memories of raising Emily, her friendship with Patricia, Helen, and Judy. "You four should start your own band," Reba joked at one point. "The Golden Girls of Country Music." "We've thought about it," Helen said with mock seriousness, "but none of us can actually play instruments." "Minor detail," Reba said with a wink. Around 4 p.m., Diane's energy began to fade. Her words came slower, her eyelids grew heavy. Emily noticed the subtle signs: shallow breathing, slight confusion, the way her grandmother's grip on Reba's hand loosened. Reba noticed too. She set down the guitar and leaned in close. "Diane, I'm going to let you rest now. But I want you to know something. This afternoon, meeting you, seeing the life you've built, and the people who love you, this is why I do what I do. Not for the awards or the sold-out arenas, for moments like this, for connections like ours. Thank you for being my friend all these years, even when I didn't know you existed." Diane smiled, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for existing in the first place. Thank you for your voice. Thank you for making the hard days bearable. You rest now," Reba said gently. "And whenever you're ready, you just follow the music. It'll lead you wherever you're meant to go next." She kissed Diane's forehead, then stood and gathered her guitar. Emily walked her to the door, where they paused in the hallway. "How long does she have?" Reba asked quietly. "The doctor says hours to days. Her kidneys are failing." Reba pulled Emily into another hug. "You gave her an incredible gift today. And she gave me one too. I won't forget her. Or you. Can I ask you something?" Emily said as they separated. "Why did you come? I mean, really? You must get thousands of requests like mine." Reba considered the question. "I did get thousands of requests. But yours was different. It wasn't about you wanting something from me. It was about love. Pure, simple love for someone who was suffering. That kind of love deserves to be honored." She smiled. "And honestly, I lost my daddy a few years back. Cancer. Just like your grandmother. I know what it feels like to watch someone you love slip away. If I'd had the chance to give him one more happy memory before the end, I would have done anything. So, when I read your message, I thought, maybe I can give that gift to someone else's family." Emily couldn't speak. She just nodded, tears streaming. "You take care of her," Reba said. "And you take care of yourself. Grief is a long road, but you'll get through it. Your grandmother made sure you knew how to survive hard things." After Reba left, Emily returned to room 428. Patricia, Helen, and Judy were quietly gathering their things, understanding without being told that family should have these final hours alone. "We'll be back tomorrow," Patricia promised, kissing Diane's cheek. "Love you, friend." "Love you too," Diane whispered. "All of you. Thank you for sharing today with me." When they were alone, Emily climbed carefully onto the hospital bed, lying beside her grandmother the way she had as a child, after bad dreams. Diane's arm came around her, weak but still protective. Best day of my life, Diane murmured. Bar none. Mine too, Grandma. Mine too. They lay together as the afternoon light faded from the window, turning the Nashville skyline into silhouettes and shadows. Emily felt her grandmother's heartbeat under her cheek, irregular now, struggling, but still beating. Still here, still fighting to hold on to this last bit of time. Play the music, Diane said. Reba's music. I want to fall asleep, listening to her voice. Emily pulled out her phone and opened Spotify, starting a playlist of Reba's greatest hits. As sweet dreams filled the room, Diane sighed contentedly. Perfect, she whispered. Everything's perfect now. And Emily, holding tight to the woman who'd held her through every storm, whispered back, Yes, Grandma, everything's perfect. Diane Patterson died at 3:17 a.m. on August 16, 2025, with Emily sleeping beside her, Reba McEntire's voice playing softly from a phone speaker, and a smile on her face that the nurses would later describe as peaceful. Emily woke to the change in her grandmother's breathing, the absence of it, actually, and for a moment she couldn't move, couldn't process, couldn't accept that the person who'd defined her entire existence was simply gone. A nurse came in quietly, verifying what Emily already knew. Time of death was officially recorded. Forms were filled out. The machinery of death, so familiar to Emily from her work, so foreign when it was her own loss, began its inevitable progression. But before they took Diane's body away, before the funeral home was called and the room was cleared and sanitized for the next dying patient, Emily did something she'd learned from years of watching other families say goodbye. She took photos, not of death itself, but of the evidence of life. The wildflowers Reba had brought, now wilted but still beautiful. The photo album opened to a picture of Diane at a 1999 concert, young and vibrant and alive. The blue nightgown, the get well cards from hospital staff, the empty chair where Reba McEntire had sat just 12 hours earlier. Emily posted one photo on Instagram later that morning. The wildflowers against the Nashville sunrise, with a simple caption, My grandmother, Diane Patterson, passed away peacefully this morning, surrounded by music and love. Yesterday, she met her hero. Today, she became mine. Thank you, Reba McEntire, for giving her the perfect last day. Some gifts are too big for words. She didn't expect a response. Reba had already given more than anyone could reasonably expect. But within an hour, a comment appeared from the verified account. Emily, my heart is with you. Your grandmother was a light. I'm honored I got to meet her. Sending you all my love during this difficult time. The post went viral. By afternoon, it had been shared thousands of times. News outlets picked it up. Local Nashville stations first, then regional, then national. Country star Reba McEntire makes hospital visit to dying fan, ran the headlines. The story spread across social media, accompanied by the photos Emily had posted from the day before. Reba and Diane smiling together, the moment captured in perfect, heartbreaking clarity. Emily's phone exploded with messages. Friends from nursing school. Distant relatives she hadn't spoken to in years. Random strangers offering condolences and sharing their own stories of loss. It was overwhelming in a way that made the grief both more and less bearable. More, because it made Diane's death feel horribly public. Less because it reminded Emily that she wasn't alone in understanding how much death hurts. The funeral was scheduled for August 19th at a small Baptist church in Murfreesboro, where Diane had attended sporadically over the years. Emily spent the intervening days in a fog, going through motions that her nursing training had taught her. Notify everyone, pick a casket, write an obituary, select hymns. Patricia, Helen, and Judy helped with everything. their presence a constant reminder that Diane had built a community, that Emily wasn't facing this alone. On the morning of August 18th, Emily's phone rang with an unfamiliar Nashville number. "Hello? Emily? This is Carolyn Snyder, Reba's manager. We met at the hospital." Emily's heart skipped. "Yes, of course. Hi. Reba asked me to call you. She wanted to know if it would be all right for her to attend your grandmother's funeral tomorrow. She doesn't want to intrude or make it a media circus, but she'd like to pay her respects if the family is comfortable with it." Emily sat down heavily on her couch, overwhelmed. "She wants to come to the funeral? Only if you're okay with it. She can sit in the back, stay out of the way. Or, if you'd prefer privacy, she completely understands." Emily thought about what Diane would want, and the answer was obvious. She should come. Grandma would be honored. She'd probably haunt me if Reba wanted to attend, and I said no. Carolyn laughed softly. "All right then. We'll keep it low-key." "And Emily?" Reba wanted me to ask, would it be okay if she sang something during the service? Emily's breath caught. She'd do that? She'd be honored to do that. "Yes," Emily whispered. "God, yes. Grandma would love that." The morning of August 19th dawned hot and humid. Typical Tennessee summer weather. Emily dressed in a black dress she'd bought specifically for this occasion, applied makeup to hide the evidence of 3 days of crying, and drove to Murfreesboro with Cassidy in the passenger seat for moral support. The church parking lot was already full when they arrived 30 minutes before the service. Emily recognized most of the cars, family members, Diane's friends from the sewing circle, neighbors from her grandmother's street, but there were also news vans, cameras, reporters standing at a respectful distance. "Jesus," Cassidy muttered. "This is insane." "It's okay," Emily said, though her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Grandma would have loved this. She'd be telling everyone, "Did you hear? Reba McEntire came to my funeral." She'd be so proud. Inside, the church was decorated simply. White lilies, photos of Diane throughout her life displayed on boards near the entrance, soft organ music playing. The casket sat at the front, closed per Emily's request. She'd said her private goodbyes already. This was for everyone else. Patricia found Emily immediately, pulling her into a tight hug. "How are you holding up, sweetheart?" "I'm here. That's about all I can manage right now." "That's enough. You just get through today, 1 minute at a time." People began filing in, filling the pews. Emily greeted them mechanically, accepting condolences and hugs from people whose names she couldn't quite remember through the fog of grief. Her nursing colleagues came in a group, Jennifer Crawford leading them. Diane's neighbors, the women from her book club. So many people whose lives had been touched by one ordinary woman who'd lived an extraordinary life in small, quiet ways. At exactly 10 a.m., there was a stir near the entrance. Emily turned to see Reba McEntire walking in, dressed in a simple black dress and minimal jewelry, her red hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was flanked by Carolyn and one security person, but she'd clearly tried to keep her presence understated. It didn't matter. Everyone recognized her. A wave of whispers rolled through the church. Reba made her way directly to Emily, ignoring the stares. "Hi, honey. How are you?" Emily found herself pulled into another hug, and this time she couldn't hold back the tears. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for everything." "Wouldn't be anywhere else," Reba said firmly. She greeted Patricia, Helen, and Judy, who looked starstruck all over again despite the somber circumstances. The service began with Pastor Michael Reynolds, who'd known Diane casually over the years, offering an opening prayer. He spoke about resurrection and eternal life, about God's mercy and comfort for the grieving. Emily heard the words without really absorbing them. Her mind kept drifting to her grandmother's face, the sound of her laugh, the way she used to hum while cooking breakfast. Various people came forward to share memories. Patricia told stories about their friendship, the concerts they'd attended, the long phone conversations about everything and nothing. A neighbor talked about how Diane had sewn her daughter's wedding dress for free when money was tight. A woman from the book club described Diane's kindness and sharp wit. Then Pastor Reynolds said, "And now, we have a very special guest who's asked to perform. Emily, would you like to introduce her?" Emily stood on shaking legs and walked to the podium. She looked out at the assembled crowd. Maybe 150 people packed into a church meant for 100. "Most of you know that my grandmother loved country music," Emily began, her voice steadier than she expected. Specifically, she loved Reba McEntire. For almost 50 years, Reba's music was the soundtrack of Grandma's life. 2 days before she died, through what I can only call a miracle, Reba came to the hospital and spent an afternoon with Grandma. She sang to her. She talked with her. She gave her the most perfect last memory anyone could ask for. Emily's voice cracked, but she pushed through. "Reba has graciously agreed to sing at Grandma's service today. I can't think of anyone Grandma would rather have sent her off. Please welcome Reba McEntire." The church erupted in applause as Reba walked to the front, carrying her guitar. She positioned herself beside the casket, one hand resting gently on the polished wood. "I only knew Diane Patterson for a few hours," Reba said into the microphone, "but I feel like I knew her my whole life." She was there, in the audience, for decades, supporting me, listening to my music, letting my songs be part of her story. And now I'm here, honored to be part of hers. She adjusted her guitar. "This is the greatest man I never knew, because Emily told me it was one of Diane's favorites, and because it's about love and loss, and the people who shape us, even when they're gone." The opening notes filled the church, and Emily felt her knees go weak. Cassidy grabbed her arm, steadying her. This song was about Reba's father, about missed chances and unspoken love. But as Reba sang it now, it became about Diane, about a woman who'd given everything and expected nothing in return. The greatest man I never knew lived just down the hall. Emily couldn't stop crying. Neither could anyone else in the church. Even the reporters outside, filming through the windows, wiped at their eyes. Reba's voice soared and broke and recovered, filled with genuine emotion rather than performance. This wasn't a concert. This was a prayer. When the song ended, silence hung in the air for a long moment. Then Reba said quietly, "Rest well, Diane, and thank you for listening all those years. I heard you too." She returned to her seat next to Emily, squeezing her hand once before letting go. The rest of the service passed in a blur. More prayers, another hymn, the final benediction. Then people filed past the casket, paying their last respects. Emily stood beside it, accepting more condolences, more hugs, more well-meaning words that meant nothing and everything simultaneously. At the cemetery, only close family and friends attended the burial. Reba came too, standing at the back with Carolyn. When the coffin was lowered into the ground and Pastor Reynolds invited everyone to place flowers on top, Reba came forward with a single red rose. "For the friend I never got to know long enough," she said, placing it gently. After everyone else had left, Emily stood alone by the grave with just Cassidy and Reba nearby. The August sun beat down mercilessly, making the grass shimmer with heat. In the distance, Nashville's skyline rose against the horizon, a reminder that life continued even when it felt like everything had stopped. "She was so proud of you," Reba said, coming to stand beside Emily. "In the hospital, all she wanted to talk about was you. What a good person you are, how you help people, how you chose compassion as a career. I learned it from her, Emily said, her voice hollow. She taught me that the only thing that matters is how you treat people. Everything else is just noise. That's a good legacy, Reba said. The best kind, actually. Emily turned to face her. Why are you doing all this? The hospital visit, the funeral, being here now? You don't owe us anything. Reba smiled sadly. Maybe not, but here's what I've learned in 50-something years on this earth. We don't just owe things to people who have a claim on us. We owe things to each other because we're all in this together. Your grandmother understood that. She gave her life to raising you, not because she had to, but because it was the right thing to do. I came to her hospital room and sang at her funeral for the same reason. Because it was right. Because I could. Because when you have the power to ease someone's pain, even a little bit, you do it. Emily nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. And Emily? Reba added, don't let this break you. Your grandmother's last words to me were about you. She said, promise me you'll remind her to keep living. So, I'm reminding you. Grieve as long as you need to. But then live. Really live. That's what she wanted for you. I'll try, Emily whispered. That's all any of us can do, Reba said. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Emily. This is my personal assistance number. If you ever need anything, and I mean anything, you call, okay? Emily took the card, staring at it like it was a lifeline. Okay. Thank you, Reba, for everything. Reba pulled her into one last hug. Thank you for sharing your grandmother with me. I'll never forget her. Or you. And then she was gone, walking back to the black SUV where Carolyn waited. Emily stood by the grave, watching the vehicle drive away, carrying Reba McEntire back to her extraordinary life, while Emily faced the prospect of continuing her ordinary one without the person who'd made it meaningful. But as she stood there in the heat, staring at the fresh dirt and flowers, Emily realized something. This wasn't the end. It was a transition. Diane had given her 22 years of love, guidance, and example. That didn't disappear with death. It lived on in every patient Emily comforted, every hand she held, every family she helped navigate the darkness of loss. And it lived on in the story that was even now spreading across the internet. A story about kindness and connection, about a superstar who took time for an ordinary woman, about music's power to bridge the gap between strangers and turn them into friends. Diane Patterson might have been just one person, but her life had mattered. Her death had mattered. And the ripples of that mattering would continue spreading outward in ways Emily couldn't yet imagine. I love you, Grandma, Emily said to the grave. Thank you for everything. I'll make you proud. I promise. A breeze picked up, rustling the flowers, and Emily chose to believe it was Diane's way of saying she already was. 3 months later, on a crisp November evening, Emily Patterson stood in front of a mirror in a hotel room in New York City, barely recognizing herself. She was wearing a cocktail dress that Cassidy had insisted she buy specifically for this occasion. Her hair professionally styled, makeup applied by someone who actually knew what they were doing. She looked sophisticated, polished. Nothing like the exhausted nurse who'd sent a desperate Instagram message to a country music legend back in August. You ready? Cassidy called from the other room. The car's here. Emily took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. The past 3 months had been surreal. After Diane's funeral, the story of Reba's hospital visit had continued to spread. What started as a viral Instagram post had become a national news story. Emily had been interviewed by local television stations, then by national morning shows. The video she'd recorded of Reba singing in the hospital room with Diane's permission, given beforehand, had been viewed over 30 million times on YouTube. People called it the most heartwarming story of the year. A reminder that celebrities were human too. Proof that kindness still existed in a cynical world. The comments sections were filled with people sharing their own stories of loss, of music that had helped them through dark times, of small moments of grace that had changed their lives. Record labels reported that Reba's album sales had spiked dramatically. Her Vegas residency had sold out months in advance. And more significantly, people were talking about the power of human connection, about showing up for strangers, about using whatever platform or privilege you had to ease someone else's burden. 2 weeks after the funeral, Emily had received a call from a producer at NBC asking if she'd be willing to appear on a special episode of The Kelly Clarkson Show, along with Reba, discussing the experience. She'd said yes, partly because she knew Diane would have been thrilled, partly because the story had taken on a life bigger than either of them. That appearance had led to others. A spot on Good Morning America, an article in People magazine, an invitation to speak at a nursing conference about compassionate care for terminal patients. Suddenly, Emily Patterson, anonymous nurse from Nashville, had become Emily Patterson, advocate for meaningful end-of-life care and the healing power of music. She'd quit her job at Vanderbilt in late September, a decision that had terrified her until the offers started coming in. Hospice organizations wanted her to consult on family support programs. Music therapy groups invited her to join boards. And most surprisingly, Reba's team had reached out about establishing a foundation in Diane's name, focused on connecting musicians with terminally ill fans to create last moments of joy. Tonight was the official launch party for the Diane Patterson Memorial Foundation, held at a sleek venue in Manhattan, with sponsors from the music industry, healthcare organizations, and private donors who'd been moved by the story. Emily was scheduled to give a speech, and the thought made her stomach churn with anxiety. The car took her and Cassidy through the glittering streets of New York, past buildings Emily had only ever seen in movies. When they arrived at the venue, photographers were already set up outside. Not the aggressive paparazzi she'd seen on television, but respectful professionals documenting the event. Inside, the space was transformed into something magical. Vintage photos of Diane covered one wall. Images Emily had provided from the family albums. Concert posters from Reba's tours over the decades lined another. A small stage was set up at one end, with instruments and sound equipment suggesting there would be live music later. Emily spotted familiar faces immediately. Patricia, Helen, and Judy stood near the bar, dressed in their finest, looking overwhelmed and delighted. Jennifer Crawford and several other nurses from Vanderbilt's oncology unit had flown up for the event, and there, talking animatedly with a group of well-dressed executives, was Reba McEntire herself, wearing a stunning burgundy dress and looking every inch the superstar she was. When Reba saw Emily, her face lit up. She excused herself and crossed the room in seconds, pulling Emily into a hug. "Look at you!" Reba exclaimed. "Emily, you look absolutely beautiful." "I clean up okay when I'm not wearing scrubs," Emily joked, though her voice shook slightly. "How are you doing?" "Really doing?" Reba asked, her eyes searching Emily's face with genuine concern. Emily considered the question honestly. "Some days are better than others. I still reach for my phone to call her sometimes. Still expect to see her at Sunday dinners. But I'm okay. I'm working on being okay. That's all anyone can ask," Reba said. She gestured around the room. "What do you think? Does this do justice to Diane's memory?" Emily's eyes welled up as she took in the scene again. Grandma would have lost her mind over this. A foundation in her name? With your involvement? She'd be telling everyone in heaven, probably driving them all crazy. Reba laughed. Good. That's exactly what we want. Come on, there are some people you should meet. The next hour was a whirlwind of introductions. Emily met hospital administrators interested in implementing similar programs. Musicians from various genres who'd been inspired by Reba's example and wanted to participate. Donors writing significant checks to fund the foundation's first year of operation. A woman named Dr. Rachel Morrison, a music therapist from Boston, who'd been hired as the foundation's director. The initial program will focus on 3 cities, Nashville, New York, and Los Angeles, Dr. Morrison explained enthusiastically. We'll partner with hospice organizations and hospitals to identify patients who are fans of particular artists, then work to arrange visits or video calls when possible. The goal isn't just celebrity meet and greets. It's about recognizing that music forms deep bonds between artists and listeners, and honoring those bonds in meaningful ways. Diane would love that mission, Emily said. She always said music made her feel less alone. That's universal, Dr. Morrison agreed. In our research phase, we found countless stories of people who credit specific songs or artists with getting them through trauma, illness, grief. This foundation is about acknowledging that connection and celebrating it. At 7:30 p.m., someone dimmed the lights and invited everyone to take seats facing the small stage. Emily was directed to a front-row chair next to Patricia, who grabbed her hand and squeezed tight. Reba took the stage, microphone in hand, and the room fell silent. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice warm and commanding. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We're gathered to celebrate the life of Diane Patterson, a woman I only knew for a few hours, but who left an indelible mark on my heart. Diane was a seamstress, a grandmother, a friend, and a devoted fan of country music for nearly 50 years. She wasn't famous. She didn't have wealth or power, but she lived a life of profound love and sacrifice, raising her granddaughter Emily after unimaginable tragedy, and finding strength in music when everything else felt impossible." Reba's eyes found Emily in the audience. In August, Emily reached out to me with a simple request, a video message for her dying grandmother. I couldn't just send a video. I had to meet the woman who'd been listening to my songs for 5 decades. And that decision changed my life. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. Meeting Diane reminded me why I do what I do. It's not about record sales or awards or sold-out stadiums. It's about the connection between the person singing and the person listening. It's about offering comfort, hope, companionship through melody and lyrics. Diane taught me that in the few hours we spent together, and I'll never forget the lesson. The room was silent, except for the sound of people crying quietly. The Diane Patterson Memorial Foundation exists to honor that connection, Reba continued, to recognize that music isn't just entertainment, it's medicine for the soul. And when someone is facing their final days, having the chance to connect with the music or the artist who helped them survive, that's not frivolous. It's sacred. It's a way of saying, your life mattered. Your love of this music mattered. You mattered. She gestured to Emily. "Emily, would you come up here, honey?" Emily's legs felt like jelly as she stood and walked to the stage. Reba handed her the microphone and stepped back, giving her the spotlight. Emily looked out at the assembled crowd, strangers and loved ones, industry professionals and regular people who'd been moved by her grandmother's story. She thought about Diane, about what she'd say if she were here. "I'm not great at public speaking," Emily began, her voice cracking slightly. "I'm a nurse. I'm used to holding hands and checking vitals, not giving speeches at fancy events in New York City. But I'm here because my grandmother can't be, and someone needs to say thank you." She took a breath, steadying herself. Thank you to Reba, who responded to a stranger's desperate plea with extraordinary generosity. Thank you to everyone who's donated to this foundation, who believes that end-of-life care should include joy and not just pain management. Thank you to the nurses and doctors and hospice workers who show up every day for patients like my grandmother, offering dignity and compassion in the darkest moments. Emily's voice grew stronger. My grandmother raised me to believe that the only thing that truly matters in life is how we treat each other. Everything else, money, status, accomplishments, fades away. But kindness, love, showing up for people when they need you most, that echoes forever. She looked directly at Reba. What you did for my grandmother, giving her that perfect last day, it didn't just matter to her. It mattered to me, to her friends, to millions of people who heard the story and were reminded that goodness still exists. You started a ripple that's still spreading, and this foundation is proof that one afternoon of compassion can change the world in ways we can't predict or measure. Tears streamed down Emily's face now, but she didn't wipe them away. Grandma, if you're listening somehow, this is for you. This foundation, these programs, all the lives that will be touched by what started with you and Reba. It's your legacy. You lived a quiet life, but it was a life that mattered. And now, everyone will know it. The room erupted in applause. Emily handed the microphone back to Reba, who pulled her into a tight hug as people stood, clapping and crying and celebrating. The rest of the evening was filled with music. Reba performed several songs, including For My Broken Heart, which had become inextricably linked to Diane's story. Other artists who'd come to support the foundation performed as well. Keith Urban sang Blue Ain't Your Color. Maren Morris performed The Bones. Even Kelly Clarkson, who'd flown in specifically for the event, sang Piece by Piece. Between performances, people shared stories. A man whose father had loved Bruce Springsteen and died wishing he could see one more show. A woman whose mother's favorite artist was Diana Ross, who'd listened to her albums while undergoing chemotherapy. A teenager whose sibling had died from cystic fibrosis, whose last request was to hear Lin-Manuel Miranda perform something from Hamilton. Each story was a reminder that music wasn't frivolous. It was fundamental to human experience. It marked our important moments, comforted us in grief, celebrated joy, gave voice to emotions we couldn't express ourselves. By the time the party wound down around 11 p.m., the foundation had raised over $2 million in initial funding. Commitments had been made from major hospitals to partner on the pilot program. Musicians from multiple genres had signed on to participate. And most importantly, Diane Patterson's name, unknown to most of the world 3 months ago, was now attached to a movement that would touch countless lives. Emily stood on the venue's balcony, looking out at New York's glittering skyline, when Reba joined her with 2 glasses of champagne. "Hell of a night," Reba said, handing her a glass. "Hell of a 3 months," Emily replied. "Sometimes I still can't believe any of this is real." "It's real," Reba assured her. "And it's just the beginning. Dr. Morrison already has a waiting list of patients and families wanting to participate. We're going to help a lot of people, Emily, because of your grandmother, because you reached out." Emily sipped her champagne, savoring the bubbles. "Can I ask you something? In the hospital, you told Grandma that she should follow the music when she was ready to go. What did you mean by that?" Reba smiled, her eyes distant. "When my daddy died, I had this dream the night before he passed. He was walking down a road, and I could hear this beautiful music playing, like a whole orchestra, but also like a single perfect note, and he just kept walking toward it. getting farther away from me but looking so peaceful, so happy. When I woke up, I knew he was almost ready to let go. And when he did, the next day, I imagined him finally reaching that music. She looked at Emily. I think the music is whatever brings us peace. For some people, it's literal music. For others, it's memories, or loved ones who've gone before, or just the feeling of finally being able to rest. I told Diane to follow the music because I wanted her to know it was okay to let go, that something beautiful was waiting for her. Emily felt tears prick her eyes again. Do you think she's at peace? I know she is, Reba said firmly, because she left behind someone who's going to make sure her life meant something. You're doing that, Emily. Every person this foundation helps. Every family who gets one more perfect memory. That's Diane living on. That's her music still playing in the world. They stood in comfortable silence. Two women who'd been brought together by death, but had created something life-affirming from the grief. The city hummed below them, millions of people living their lives, most never knowing about the quiet woman from Tennessee whose loss had sparked a movement. But that was okay. Diane hadn't lived for fame or recognition. She'd lived for love, for Emily, for her friends, for the community she'd served quietly for decades. And now that love was multiplying, spreading, reaching people who'd never know her name, but would benefit from her legacy. Thank you, Emily said finally, for all of this, for caring about a stranger, for making her last day perfect, for everything. Reba smiled. Thank you for reminding me what matters, for sharing your grandmother with the world, and for turning tragedy into something beautiful. That's real strength, Emily. Diane raised you right. Inside, the party continued. Patricia and the ladies were dancing to country music, laughing like they were at one of Diane's beloved concerts. Hospital staff mingled with music industry executives, finding common ground in their shared mission. And somewhere, in the mix of it all, Diane's photo hung on the wall, smiling, alive, frozen in a moment of joy that would now inspire joy for countless others. Emily raised her glass toward the stars, toward wherever her grandmother might be. This is for you, Grandma. You always said I was your greatest accomplishment, but you were wrong. This is your greatest accomplishment, a life lived with so much love that even death couldn't stop it from spreading. And in the warm November night, with music drifting from the party and the city lights twinkling like earthbound stars, Emily Patterson felt something she hadn't experienced since that August afternoon in the hospital room. Hope. Not the desperate, grasping hope of someone trying to prevent the inevitable, but the steady, confident hope of someone who knows that love doesn't die, that legacies are built from everyday acts of kindness, and that sometimes the most ordinary lives create the most extraordinary impacts. Diane Patterson had been a seamstress, a grandmother, a fan of country music, but she'd also been a teacher, showing Emily and anyone who heard her story that what we do for each other, the small gestures, the moments of connection, the love we offer freely, these are the things that echo forever. The simple request had been answered with a chilling performance, but that performance had sparked something bigger than either woman could have imagined. It had created a foundation, touched millions of hearts, and reminded the world that we're all connected by our shared humanity and by the music that gives voice to our deepest emotions. As Emily went back inside to rejoin the celebration, she carried with her the weight of grief and the lightness of purpose. Her grandmother was gone, but her influence remained. In Emily's compassion, in the foundation bearing her name, in the countless lives that would be changed by what had started with one dying woman's wish, and one superstar's willingness to honor it. The music played on, and Diane Patterson's legacy grew with every note.